Psychology Hour coming up next. We are talking about stalking. Breakups are rarely easy, and thanks to social media, it has become harder to perhaps let people go. Seeing your ex doing anything apart from crying in front of the TV can be incredibly painful. So why is it so hard to stop stalking their profiles? But joining us in studio, clinical psychologist from the Human Relations Institute and Clinic, Dr. Thoraiya. We've had confessions on the text line, Thoraiya. We've had questions on the text line. Before we start talking about looking up our exes, a little cheeky LinkedIn view. Be careful on LinkedIn because they can see that. Yeah. Or social media. Before we talk breakups, what happens in our brains when we're in love? Maybe that sets the scene a little bit.
Well, I mean, whether it's love or lust, that initial passion that we experience gives us a boost of dopamine and gives us a boost of oxytocin. And so essentially that's when we're having the same kind of feel that you would if you were on any kind of, illegal substance or anything like that. So it's that hit of a reward system that we experience in our brain. And so that becomes something that we crave more and more. And at times, unfortunately, what ends up happening is a lot of people believe that if that's not being felt in a relationship, then the relationship is not a good relationship.
Well,
Whereas
that's interesting. So, let's be realistic here. That it's very rare for that to be the case in a long-term sustained relationship.
yes, of course. I mean, we call it the honeymoon phase for a reason in the beginning of every relationship because it's cute, it's sweet. Everybody's putting their best foot forward, butterflies in the stomach. You miss the person, you miss their quirkiness, and then as the relationship matures, which is supposed to, you go from that passion to compassion. Those things become irritating. Those little quirks that you used to love in a person start to become a bit frustrating. But also learning how to appreciate the person despite all of those things is what makes the relationship a lot more mature than when it first started off.
So tell us a little bit about, from a psychological point of view, why breakups are so painful.
Well, actually, pain is registered in the body in the same way, regardless what pain that is. So if you get hit, if you get punched, if you get into an accident, if you got stabbed, if you have a heartbreak, whatever it is, pain is registered in the same way. And so that pain that we have when we lose somebody, if it's just purely physiological, when we're talking just physiological, then that pain is experienced regardless in what way it comes. However, with a lot of breakups, it can trigger things like rejection, things like fear of abandonment, things like past trauma, feelings of being unworthy, feelings of being unloved, not valued. So things like that. So that can exacerbate the way the pain is felt. So essentially, we do have that physiological pain that happens. But how that relationship ends, first of all, how it ends is very important. But also the fact that it ends not only triggers grief or brings up grief, but also can trigger a lot of past traumas that can contribute to the negativity that a person is experiencing.
Dr. Thoraiya with us today. Do you have a little look up your ex and late at night? Be honest. I might be. Thoraiya, let's dive right in. Stalking exes online and in real life, which is a kind of separate, often more serious issue, is a behaviour many of us have heard about, dabbled in. To start off, why do people feel the need to stalk their exes online after a breakup? What are we getting from that?
So I think just to differentiate, when we talk about stalking, we're really talking about something that's quite harmful, right? Versus the harmless kind of, I want to check in and see what my ex is doing kind of a thing, versus stalking where it becomes obsessive. And it's also referred to as obsessive relational intrusion. So you're actually intruding on the person's life. And that can come in forms of like, I'm messaging them, texting them, I'm emailing them, but I'm also reaching out and being friends with their friends, or I'm like joining their gyms and I'm like making myself available to the places where they usually go out to, or I'm actually tracking their location. So that's actual stalking.
Yes.
Right? And that's not necessarily what we're referring to.
And let's be very clear. Dubai police take cybercrimes very seriously.
Right.
So if this is something that you have experienced, as you're saying, endless messaging, harassment of your friends, contacts, your workplace, very different kettle of fish to me being like, I want wonder what my university boyfriend's up to.
Right, exactly. So that
Just to clarify.
Right, and that obsessiveness and that stalking behavior is a lot more harmful for both the individual who's engaging in that behavior because it takes over their life, as well as the person who's being stalked, right? So what we're referring to is much less harmful than that. We're talking about that harmless, like checking in, seeing what they're up to. More, it comes from a place of maybe curiosity, a place of maybe sometimes control as well. Like I need to control like what they're doing. I need to know what's happening. It could come up from a place of rejection of the rejection itself. So not being able to accept the fact that the relationship is over. It could come from a place of fear as well of like, what if that person moves on and I'm going to be alone? So there's so many different places that or reasons why we engage in such behavior.
Going to the text line now if you want to have your say, 4001. ARN Play app is there. Phone lines are open. Same number as the WhatsApp, 048715500. You don't need to put your name on it. Anonymous message saying, I have a little look from time to time at an ex's Instagram. I'm very happily married. He's now divorced and seems a bit stuck. It sounds terrible, but I feel like I've won. He was awful to me, by the way. I get that. Ben says, no, I'd rather not know. If I found out they died, for example, it would stir up all sorts of emotions. I prefer to assume in a vague sort of way that they're still doing whatever it was that they were doing when we parted. We are going to go to the text line next. We've had a message, someone who regrets looking at their partner's ex's Facebook. And No Name saying, would you say looking up an ex is cheating? Dr. Thoraiya is on hand, clinical psychologist from the Human Relations Institute and Clinic. Be honest, do you have a little search from time to time and has it ever got out of hand? Plus, we're going to get Dr. T's advice for getting over an ex. Dr. Thoraiya is with us, clinical psychologist from the Human Relations Institute and Clinic, and we're talking about those little late night sneak peeks you might have at your ex's Facebook page, or maybe nosy on LinkedIn, see what they're up to, see that sliding doors moment. I think that is at the crux of it for an awful lot of people that, conversations I've had recently. We met a couple and they'd got married at 19 and it led to this discussion around the table of what would your life be like if you married the person you were with at 19? I was like, oh my God, horrendous. Dread to think, because the guy I was with at 19 was great for then, maybe not for now. So I think your point about curiosity is a really interesting one. And I had a message, anonymous message, and you can, of course, leave your name off, doesn't matter, but saying to Dr. Thoraiya, would you say looking up an ex is cheating? I did this a few years ago after hearing he'd been diagnosed with cancer. I never reached out to him nor thought about reaching out. I looked up to read a post he'd put up about being diagnosed. But to my boyfriend, it meant I had feelings and wanted to contact him. And in his eyes, that was as good as cheating. I have tried to explain myself many times, but he says because I tried to hide the fact I did it, knowing he wouldn't be happy, he thinks I'm hiding more. I honestly just looked up his post.
So it's a tricky one. Anytime somebody says, oh, if you think of your ex or you've looked up your ex, then you might still have feelings for them. I don't agree with that statement at all. What is important, okay, fine, I can understand there's a little bit of a betrayal feeling from your partner because you hid it from them. However, I wouldn't go as far as to say that was cheating, because clearly what you did is not engage in the behavior. Right. And for a lot of people, if we're just going to say that engaging in thoughts or engaging in some form of fantastical thinking, then that's cheating. Then every single person on this planet has cheated. What we want to look at is the behavior, right? The behavior is very important. And so the fact that you were looking up either because you were concerned about, the post about cancer and so on and so forth, that's, fine. I think hiding it is understandable that your partner would feel a bit betrayed because of it.
And another message here saying, hi both. I've been seeing a man for a few months, going really well, but I recently looked up his ex on Facebook, discovered she's very young, I'm the same age as him, and she's very attractive. They were married for 10 years, have 2 children, but divorced 3 years ago. For some reason, it's made me feel really insecure. Of course, I know people who meet in their mid-40s have a past. I certainly do. But seeing her has made me feel really weird, seeing both of them together as a happy family. I never should have looked at them. I know, but that's human
It's
nature.
hard. It's hard. It's really hard not to look and not to be curious to find out and to figure out and to try to like pry a little bit more and find out what happened and how was that relation and what, but I think on some level you need to remember that that relationship ended for a reason, right? Even if she's a supermodel, it doesn't matter. Or maybe you see 1,000 pictures of them smiling. I mean, usually people don't like to look angry and sad in their
People
pictures.
don't really often post the photos of them of their fights on Facebook.
Exactly. So essentially, you're going to naturally see pictures of them smiling and so on and so forth. But there's a reason why that relationship ended, and clearly, him being with you shows that there's something that you possess that was lacking in their previous relationship.
Don't let this ruin your relationship, because if that insecurity creeps in, it's going to send him running.
Right.
I would say. Right, getting over exes, Thoraiya. Whether you are speaking to someone in clinic or it's a friend that comes to you who is heartbroken and they've we can look at the phone thing of look, he's with someone already, here he is with his arm around someone at a party, the jealousy, the insecurity. Do you recommend going cold turkey on the social media?
I always recommend going cold turkey in the beginning. I say, listen, if you are the type of person that goes back and looks or looks at the pictures that you have, get rid of all of the pictures on your phone, get rid of all of the pictures on your computer, or like if you have them all over your house, burn them, whatever it is, but just put them away. Put them away in the beginning, because if you struggle in the beginning, just take yourself out of that equation for a while and then heal. And to heal, the first and foremost thing is to accept the fact that this relationship has ended. And more so, accept the fact that you're going to have conflictual feelings. Because sometimes when we end a relationship, be it we've ended or they've ended the relationship, if the person was great, we struggle with a lot of shame-based intrusive thoughts. Things like, if I could have been a little bit better, I would have been able to keep this relationship. Or if I had looked prettier, or if I had been thinner, or if I had made more money, or if I had whatever. These are all shame-based intrusive thoughts. This is not accurate. The relationship was meant to end. It was going to end regardless. There's other things that also come up, which is, if my partner was abusive or toxic or unhealthy, why do I still miss them? Clearly, there's something wrong with me. No, that's not true. We have conflictual feelings that occur after a breakup. These are things like, I can still miss a partner that was toxic to me, because no one is 100% toxic 100% of the time. So there are moments where I'm still going to miss, which is why it's so crucial to remove them from the pedestal. Because after a breakup, our tendency in the beginning is to kind of go through, oh, this person was this bad and that bad and this bad. And then we go into this period of, oh, but they were so sweet and they did this and then they bought that. And I used to laugh so much. And all of these things come up. But what we forget is actually the nature of the relationship itself. Because we're not saying that the person themselves is a horrible person. What we're saying is the nature of the relationship was not given the value that it deserved, which is why the relationship ended. And it's not one person's responsibility to make a relationship work. It's both parties. So sometimes taking that lesson and saying to yourself, okay, what was my role in this? And what can I do for myself for the next relationship? As well as recognizing what was the role of the person that you were with.
So wise. You're so wise. I saw a post on Instagram a while ago, and it was someone saying that she'd broken up with her boyfriend and quit her job in the same week. And everyone was like, congratulations on quitting your job. And I'm so sorry about your boyfriend. She was like, no. I'm actually really happy about both of these situations. Right. But we do tend to frame breakups as always being negative. And I count that in terms of, casual boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, but also marriages. Sometimes the end of a marriage can really be something incredibly good for both people, that you're leaving something behind that, as you're saying, hasn't had the value, hasn't served you, hasn't made you happy. And I guess what I want to ask you is that kind of, is there a magic formula of how long does it take to get over someone? Because it was, I remember years ago, it was like, oh, it's going to take, I don't know, a tenth of the time we were together or some such nonsense number.
I've never heard of that.
I don't know. You know how you read something in magazines when you're teenagers and it just stays with you?
Right.
Don't ask me for my skincare advice. But, is there a time where you're like, okay, dude, it's been a while now. You should be over this guy, or, get with the program. This, you guys weren't that serious and she wasn't that great anyway.
I wouldn't say that there's a time limit. However, what I would say is if you're not working on healing, which means if you're not working on going through the grieving process, then what ends up happening is the amount of pain that you experience is prolonged. And I don't know if I showed you this a long time ago, Helen, but there's this psychologist online that I forgot his name, but basically he showed what grief looks like. And he says in the beginning of grief, you basically created a new button in your life, and that button is a button of pain. But you feel so bloated that everything that you're doing in life, whether you wake up, you have a drink of coffee, you have whatever it is, you're constantly pushing that button. And because you're so bloated and you're so big as this ball in life, that you're pushing that button all the way in. And so that pain is felt intensively. As you move forward in life, it's not like that pain button goes away, but you are no longer bloated if you're working through your healing. So what ends up happening is that you might hit that pain button, but it might feel like a little bit of a, rather than an ouch. Mm-hmm. And so you go through life, and whenever you lose somebody, and that person will always be with you. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is recognizing that we will never forget completely the people that we've ever been with. However, we may not necessarily respond to their memory in the same way as we did after a breakup.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got goosebumps thinking about that. I think that's so apt. And what about supporting a friend who's going through a breakup? There's the classic, I'll come over with a pint of ice cream. What can be useful or indeed not very useful thing to say to someone who's heartbroken?
Definitely you don't want to comment on their exes.
Oh, I was going to say, she was the worst.
Right. Or, oh my God, he was a disaster. Because what ends up happening is if they get back together, you are now labeled as the person who doesn't like their partner.
Try and stay neutral.
Yeah, stay neutral. Just listen, be supportive, ask them what they need from you. It's very important to just kind of give them what they need. However, that being said, if you've noticed that your friend has kind of moved into, this spiral of self-deprecation and just constant thinking that they've lost the best thing in the world for them, then you really want to help them kind of reframe and then maybe even possibly talk to someone about it.
Dr. Thoraiya, thank you so much. I've got one last question for you. You cannot win today's competition. We can't send you on the ultimate. As much as I'd love to hang with you in Hatta, who would you like to spend a car journey with if you were in a car for an hour and a half? Friend, loved one, celebrity. My shout was Taylor Swift. Sammy's just been in touch saying she can sing my favourite songs as I drive. Who would you want to be there?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think definitely a friend, or maybe Jason Momoa. Just a
great options.
Nice person to drive with, I think.
Dr. Thoraiya can be found. We'll talk to you off. There's a great Jason Momoa program called The Climb. It's like a reality TV program about rock climbing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my gift to you.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Thoraiya can be found at the Human Relations Institute and Clinic. Thank you again for all of your questions and your comments.